All right, and for the benefit of those joining us for the recorded session, my name is Leah, and I am the current show and sale coordinator for the Students Association 2021 to 2022. I will also be in charge of photo documentation support and services for the SA for this year. I'm super happy to be introducing our brand new series of workshops from show and sale, starting with Introduction to Photo Documentation. So before we begin, I would just like to remind everybody that this is an open space where there are no stupid questions. Feel free to type them in the meeting chat as we go along. My friend Rocio will be helping out by letting me know questions as they come up. If you would like to leave at any time, please do so. It's a casual space. And of course, one second. I'd like to do also a land acknowledgement, because even though we are on a virtual platform for many of our Students Association events this year, we still want to acknowledge the land that our offices, our students, our campus is on. So in the spirit of respect and truth, we honor and acknowledge Mohkinstsis, also known as Calgary, and the traditional Treaty 7 territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Kainai, the Piikani, as well as the Stoney Nakoda, the Bearspaw, Chiniki, and Wesley and Tsuut'ina nations. We also acknowledge the members of the Inuit and Métis community, and specifically the Métis Nation Region 3. Finally, in the spirit of reconciliation, and because we are all treaty people, we acknowledge all people who make their homes in the traditional Treaty 7 territory of Southern Alberta. And we are so honored as an organization to be able to operate here and to encourage the creative community within Mohkinstsis and Treaty 7. So I guess without further ado, before I begin my presentation, I'm just going to quickly explain what this presentation is going to look like. So first of all, Introduction to Photo Documentation will cover the different resources that you will have available as an AUArts student for photo docking your own artwork. And also keep in mind, for those of you who are participating in show and sale or interested in our professional development program, this workshop Intro to Photo Documentation is one of the mandatory required courses to complete our program. So you're welcome to join us here live today to complete that in advance of our applications ending on October 1st, or you can feel free to come in on Microsoft Stream once we upload the recording and watch it from there. Let me just bring up my PowerPoint. There we go. So again, this is Intro to Photo Documentation, AUArts student resources and tips for getting great pics of your work. So first of all, what is photo documentation? Well, photo documentation is one of the most important skills a visual artist can possess. When you apply for scholarships, residencies, grants, and also to SA programs like Show and Sale, the Mary Nicole Gallery, and the Heard Residency, we want to see really great documentation of your artwork. In fact, it is the very first thing that the jury sees. A good photo really can make or break your application to any of these different opportunities, so taking the time to do it well is really worth your effort. This presentation will introduce the various resources available to you as an AUArts student to document work. It'll also cover how to document work at home in a pinch, and it'll get you a sneak peek at our brand new subsidized Photo Doc days coming this November. And I just want to lead into this presentation with a quote from permanent faculty and practicing artist and juror Natalie Rodriguez, that 90% of the people who will view your art will not see it in person. A photo of your art is often the deciding factor for people viewing it whether or not to accept your application. So keep that in mind as we go forward. So first of all, let's talk about the AUArts Photo Doc resources that are available to all students, part-time, full-time, domestic, and international. So the question is, where can I go for photo documentation? Well, we are so lucky at AUArts to have amazing facilities for students to photo doc, and they're absolutely free. They come with your tuition. Right now, our Photo Doc communal room is in room 451 on the 4th floor. It's being renovated for this semester, so right now the equipment isn't available. I talked with a technician and he said that he's probably going to have it ready for about early October. The technician in charge of the communal Photo Doc space is Brent Smith, whose office is in the IO lab on the 4th floor just across from room 451. He's a really fantastic guy, he's incredibly helpful, and he's also the person to go to get orientation to access this space. One thing to keep in mind is it is a communal studio and it is also attached to the photo department studios, which means that photo majors will be occasionally using the room or traveling through the room as well. So just be respectful of the space and the equipment if you get a chance to work in there. So what is available within 451 for students to borrow for their own documentation? We have several entry-level DSLRs with a few selections of lenses. We do have tripods available, LED continuous lighting, which is kind of like an entry-level way of getting into studio photography with a couple of soft boxes already set up. They also have tabletop white and black backdrops and a plexi light table that can create a gradated background. So what kind of work can you document there? You can document 2D pieces about up to 4 foot by 4 foot and 3D pieces up to about 2 foot by 2 foot, depending on which table that you are using. Anything bigger, and you might want to talk to the technician first. So it's going to be operating on a booking system for this year, and Brent's working out what exactly that'll be looking like with COVID restrictions and how to do the booking virtually. As I mentioned before, the space won't be ready to document in until early October this semester. So if you are in immediate need of Photo Doc services before then, please reach out to Brent at brent.smith@auarts.ca, and he'll try his best to help you out. Ooh, there we go. So what does the work documented at school look like? So this is a couple of examples of things that I've documented previously within the Photo Doc studio. They have a really fantastic large pin wall for you to put any unframed work on. You can also put in a temporary nail or screw and hang a canvas from there. And this is an example of using the plexi light table. It's not a bad idea for glass and reflective objects, but because the light comes through the table, it kind of gives a nice even finish of lighting. So in general, I would say the resources at school are pretty good. So, but you have a space and you have no clue how to photograph. In that case, don't worry, we do have resources for that. The Illingworth Kerr Gallery at AUArts has put together a really excellent video series, what we call Photo Doc 101, which covers how to photo document using school resources from start to finish. It'll cover camera settings, lighting, and editing, and show you how to set up a variety of work. So they'll really, really help you if you don't have any experience. These are available through Microsoft Stream on both the Show and Sale virtual workshop channel and also on the Illingworth Kerr channel. Keep in mind that for Show and Sale interested artists, taking one of these more advanced photo documentation workshops is highly recommended as an elective as well. And also thank you so much to the IKG. They've been super generous in kind of being able to put these videos out for everyone within the school to see, because they're a fantastic resource. So take some time to watch these videos if you can and get familiar with the equipment so that you're ready to use the school's resources when they do open. And I'm just going to leave this up here. This is a direct QR code link to the IKG Photo Doc 101 series on the Show and Sale channel. While you're there, you may also wish to explore some of our other mandatory and elective workshops, but you'll be able to find most of those videos here. And Rocio, if you wouldn't mind also putting in kind of the link to the channel within the meeting chat when you can, that would be fantastic. Okay, I'm going to leave this up for just a little bit more. Feel free to take a screenshot or use your phone. All right, moving on. So I talked about orientations before. Before you get to use the space at school, you have to go for orientation. The the equipment in there is expensive and it is delicate, so we want to make sure that you're staying safe and you're not breaking anything when you go there on your own. So right now, orientations for PhotoDoc are available through Brent. If you want, you can have a 30-minute orientation starting daily from September 22nd to October 1st. They have an online form set up that you can book yourself in. You can also book a woodshop and an IO lab orientation at the same time. So it's really useful. I highly recommend doing all three of these, especially if you are a new student, as these free communal areas, the woodshop, PhotoDoc, and the self-serve IO lab are super important to your creative career, and you'll end up using them at some point during your time here at AUArts. And I also put another QR code from Brent to start to sign up for your PhotoDoc orientation. I will be putting the link separately in the meeting chat and on our resource page after this meeting. Okay, is that enough time for everyone to take a screenshot or to get the link? Okay,
Yeah,
I'm gonna.
Sorry, I was trying to copy the link from the from the community hub where you have all the documentation videos, but I don't think I was doing it properly.
That's okay. We'll put all the links in the meeting chat afterwards then. I know it can be a bit tricky with Microsoft Stream. All right, so let's move on for now then to kind of the next section, photo documentation at home. I feel like this is a really important area to touch on just because, you know, COVID restrictions are changing rapidly. And while I would love to be in class for all semester, I feel like we should all know how to photo doc decently at home in the event, God forbid, that we have to go online only. So this is a good skill to have when you're in a pinch. You can get very credible photos from documenting at home, even with the bare minimum of equipment. So yeah, you might have a tough deadline to meet, or PhotoDoc might also be busy. So those are some other reasons why you may wish to be documenting at home. While a fancy DSLR camera and studio lighting is always a really nice bonus, you can do your own PhotoDoc on a budget. The following list can be found around your house or bought for under $50 as kind of just a starting kit to PhotoDocking at home. So first of all, you'll need a phone camera, white or black poster paper. I like bigger ones rather than smaller ones. A corkboard or a foam board is nice to have as well, especially if you're doing 2D artwork and you need to pin things on it. You'll need a room with a window, or alternatively, 2 desk lights with the same type of light bulb in order to give you your light. A table is really nice, white tissue paper, masking tape, and a computer with internet. If you have a DSLR camera, tripod, printer and scanner, and Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom, that's excellent. If not, we have different alternatives for that if you're really, really on a budget. So how do you set up a photo document space in your house with the right lighting? And I guess I should talk maybe a bit about myself before I go into this large paragraph, that I am actually a current glass major in 5th year, but I'm also a photography major at the same time doing a subsequent degree. And the one thing that I learned from my teachers in photo that gave me the skills I needed to document my own craft work was light is light is light. Good photographers know not just how to control light, but also how to adapt current lighting situations. And that's what I'm going to introduce you guys to, is that you don't really need a lot of good equipment to make a good photo. You just need a really good lighting. Rocio?
I have a good question here about Photoshop at the school, because I know in the past all the computers at school had it, but now with the limitation of accessing the computers at school, can students access the Photoshop versions online through the school?
Honestly, I'm not sure about the answer for that, because the last time I talked with Brent, they were still working out some technical glitches. I'd like to think that yes, we'll be able to use Adobe programs at school, but whether you can access them at home with a school account is still up for debate. They're hoping to have the system figured out by October, and we will be introducing some alternative editing programs that are free that you can still use in place of Lightroom and Photoshop.
I was just going to add to that. Also, as a student, you have, I know in the past you can go to Adobe Creative and you can just type in that you're a student. And I think there is a test run that you can do just to kind of get yourself sorted. You can always use it as a trial and then just do all your editing for your photos, and then it ends the trial and you already did all your editing. So anyway, it's something you can do too.
Yeah, for sure. Like if you want to invest in Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom, if you haven't already, I'm a broke student as well. I would totally take the 14 or 30-day trial, stretch it as long as I can, and then start paying for it afterwards. So like really make use of your free trials. Okay, I guess kind of back to topic, talking about lighting and good light. It's really important at home to find a place where you have the right lighting, because that makes a huge difference in how you document your work, even if you're just using a phone. First, even before you begin, you want to make sure you give all your artwork and whatever you're using as a clean background, like a solid clean. If you've got a ceramic cup or a glass mug, then you want to polish it up, make it look nice. You want to make sure there's not like specks of dust or like weird eraser marks on your 2D pieces. That's because it's a lot easier to clean dust spots by actually cleaning them rather than during editing, especially if you don't have access to any editing software. Perhaps you're even in a space where you don't have Wi-Fi and you have to rely on your phone editing. The best kind of light that flatters artwork is one that typically casts soft shadows. And the easiest way to get this light is actually to use the sun, use natural lighting. Because the sun is it's one big ball of light, but it's far away and it casts a nice soft shadow at certain times of the day. If you can, find a room in your house that has a large window, but make sure the sun's not shining directly into the shooting space through the window. It'll give you enough ambient light to get a great picture without harsh shadows. The best time of day to do this would be in the morning when the sun just comes above the horizon, but isn't shining completely like midday, or on a cloudy day as well. That works too. If you don't have any windows, try to find a spot away from any strong sources of light so you can set up your own desk lights instead. We mentioned before, having 2 desk lights with the same type of light bulb is really good. If you have to resort to that, make sure the light bulbs are the same, the color temperature of the bulbs is the same. One's not really warm and one's not really cool. And if possible, turn off the room lights when shooting with those desk lights. With the desk lights, you can manipulate them to create a gentle, smooth wash of light over your piece. And if you find it creating lots of really harsh shadows, you can even use a bit of tissue paper or wax paper over top of the light to soften that. Just a word of caution, do not leave any tissue paper or wax paper on top of your lights when not in use, because that is a fire hazard. But it is a good, solid trick to get the light that you need if you're shooting at night or you don't have any windows at your place.
I was going to add to that. That happened to me one time. I started a fire.
Oh no, Rosita!
I know. So I actually, it was not a piece of paper, but it was a piece of fabric that I put it on a lamp to make it softer. And I was shooting for a long time, and then the fabric started to burn. So be super careful with yes. that for sure. Yeah. And it's great to use sheets to diffuse the light and make it softer. So anyway, just some insight.
Yeah, basically all the fancy equipment that professional photographers get to use, there's really not that much difference between a big softbox light and a desk lamp with some fabric or tissue on it. It's just the quality of how much it diffuses the light and the strength of the light. So you can get a very, very credible source of lighting and make your own softbox at home without too much of a fuss. And to kind of like visually demonstrate what I meant by trying to find a room and a time of day to shoot in that is appropriate for doing artwork, this is the master bathroom in my house. It's right now, the morning sun faces away from the window. You can see that outside is nice and bright, but it's not casting any really harsh shadows on the wall as you see on the right side over here. You don't want to see this. Either change the wall or change the location or find a way to diffuse it or find another time of day, because these harsh shadows will show up on your final photograph if you see them on the wall. So you're looking for just a nice wash of light without sunlight going directly into the room. So we're going to talk mostly about shooting with a phone camera because that's what most people have. Phone cameras these days are actually fairly good. You can get good photographs of your work as long as you set it up properly. So I guess a couple housekeeping things: make sure your camera lens is clean. Don't discount that. Having any grime or grit on your lens is not good. The automatic mode on phones is actually pretty satisfactory for documenting work, but it's really recommended not to use your flash. You want to let the ambient light in the room or desk lights do their magic. Flash tip, well, you've probably used it like at a concert or somewhere else, and you take a flash photo of someone and they are just kind of like really flat and gross. So same thing, we don't want to do that with our artwork. And it's a really good idea to keep your phone camera around and to document your process as well as your final piece so that you can share your images on social media. And, you know, for other things like grant proposals, they also want to see works in progress. So having your phone is pretty handy. And to kind of demonstrate just how good a phone camera can be with the right lighting, the following images in the presentation are all taken with my S9 smartphone camera. So we're going to talk next about backdrops. So having a clean background is really important for a lot of art pieces. You want to let the artwork be the star. This is my kind of MacGyvering backdrop for especially pieces, flat pieces that need to be pinned and are not framed. So what I like to do is take a random corkboard or foam board and cover it with poster paper. That way, when you pin pieces onto the board, you can actually remove the paper once it gets too many holes in it, and you don't have to keep replacing your corkboard every time. So as you can see, I maybe didn't do the best job of wrapping it for the demo, and I'm using kind of a really kind of older piece of poster paper that's been through a little bit. But the great thing is, again, that I can kind of refresh the paper every time I get, you know, too many pinholes in there, which is kind of nice. So if you're photographing 2D work, it's in order to avoid like different like perspective reach, which is when, you know, a flat piece looks super diagonal in a photo. It's really a good idea to actually shoot on the ground and then to shoot above from it, because that tends to make you on the same level as your art piece. So I would arrange it on the ground with your piece, like really think about the lighting. Right here, you can see there's a bit of shadow coming in from the left side if you look at the bathroom flooring, but I've nudged the paper itself to the right so that the lighting itself is even across the board on this watercolor print. Honestly, photography is not that much different from doing still life painting or, you know, going to figure drawing class. It's really paying attention to the light and the shadows. So even before you pick up your camera, experiment, use your eyes and check, is the white frame on this side the same kind of white on this side, and kind of shuffle it around till you find the best place. If you're using desk lights, set up your two lights beside your piece and aim the light slightly above so that the light beams cross each other like this on a parallel line. You don't want to aim the light directly at the piece since that might result in glare, especially if you're using acrylic or oils. And again, it's all about experimentation. Adjust the lighting until it's even on the piece. You also want to be careful not to cast your own shadow on the piece when documenting. And finally, another quick method of doing kind of smaller work, especially watercolors or ink prints, is to actually scan it using a good printer scanner, or that could also work for sketchbook pages. So This is the initial shot that I took with my smartphone camera from above with the natural light in my bathroom. So note that again, like the lighting is fairly even along the whole piece. I try to get as close to it as possible without casting my own shadow so that it fills the frame of the image. And that's important, especially when you get to using DSLRs and creating large image files, that you want to let the piece fill the frame. Because we're eventually going to start cropping all of this, and that just ends up being a bit of like wasted pixels. Also note that even though I have a little bit of a wobble here, that actually the perspective on this is pretty good. Like the lines are straight vertically and fairly horizontally, although we might fix that later. Getting a detail shot is also really recommended when you're doing 2D work, especially if you have a lot of texture or detail, or you have like a focal point you really want someone to focus on. So I decided my focal point was probably the door over here. And again, if you see the shadow like this on your piece, you might want to step back or change the orientation of your piece. And also, if you're doing an unframed artwork, I highly recommend pinning it down, as sometimes, edges of your paper curl, or you might have, a bit of a thing with, the cutting of the edges. So that's really important to keep in mind for those doing printmaking or watercolors or inks. So next, we're going to talk about a different backdrop called a seamless. You can use your trusty poster paper to create what we professionals call a seamless, or a curve, or a cove for 3D pieces. So by curving a paper away from the wall to a floor or a table without a crease, you can actually mimic the same setup that commercial photographers use to get a clean shot of models and products at a fraction of the price. You can see in the photo on the right, I've really MacGyvered this. As I said, the poster paper I used was it wasn't the freshest. But you can see I just use a bit of packing tape at the very top to keep it on the wall or bathroom cabinets in my case. And then I gently rolled it down so that you can't see any creases where it touches the floor. And finally, I added a little bit of tape on the corners here just to keep it in place. You want to adjust that curve so that you're getting some even lighting on it. Again, this could take a little bit of fiddling, so experiment a bit and use your eyes to check to see if you're getting any really harsh shadows. In this case, it is better to have more paper than less, even if you're shooting a small thing like a cup, because you may wish to use your camera and back away from the piece or take different angles. So I have a very big piece of poster paper to accommodate this little cup here. So these are some photos that I got with my phone camera using that seamless that I made with the 3D setup. With a lot of 3D pieces, we really recommend natural lighting. And when you place your piece on the backdrop, pay attention to how the light shapes the contours and the shadows of the piece, again, just like figure drawing. So really pay attention to, can you actually see like the outline of the piece? Because that's where a lot of people tend to ignore with 3D photography. Generally speaking, like a 45 degrees angle down to the piece, kind of like this, is a solid place to start to get a flattering shot, but really experiment. Before you take the picture, use your phone, like walk around the piece and try to find out, like what are the most important things to actually photograph. Probably for this cup, it would be the handle, like these little beautiful texture pieces over here, and the fact that, you want to make it seem like a 3D object instead of just, a flat piece. If you're using lights, aim your lights at the corners of the paper, so like a cross. Adjust this distance and light as needed, but again, pay attention to those contours to make sure that you are getting a nice solid outline of your piece against that backdrop. So again, I want you just to notice here how the shadows around the cup are really nice and soft, and you can see the edges. It's all about experimentation, and in terms of the amount of shots that you want to take for a 3D piece, my recommendation personally is at least 2 angle shots and 1 detail shot. Obviously, depending on your medium and the size of the piece, you may want to go a little bit more, but that's a good place to start. And that's just proof that I used my horrible MacGyvered seamless in my bathroom to do these shots for you. All right, now we're going to touch a little bit on shooting with a DSLR. I'm not going to go way into it because it is well, I mean, it takes a full bachelor's to go through how to shoot with a DSLR. But if you do have a professional camera and a tripod, you'll have access to kind of more advanced camera settings. Just like with your phone, make sure that your lens is clean and the piece is in focus before taking a shot. It's really complex how to use a DSLR, but the following formula is a good place to start for doing photo documentation on your own. Most cameras have what's called an aperture priority mode, which means that out of the 3 different settings you can use in a camera to affect an exposure, you only have to deal with 2. So what is recommended here is having an ISO of 200, an aperture of f8 to f10, and then with aperture priority mode, your shutter speed will automatically be calculated, usually between 1/60th of a second and 2 seconds. So this is kind of, you can let the camera do that for you. But making sure to have this, the f-stop at a high number, is really important to keep everything in focus. The ISO refers specifically to the sensitivity of light the camera sensor has. It affects the grain of the photo, so you'll want to keep this at whatever lowest setting that you have on your camera. The aperture refers to what's called depth of field. Having a low depth of field creates like a macro effect with very little in focus. A high depth of field is preferable for photo documentation since you want to highlight all the details of your artwork. If you're taking a piece that's, like fairly big, 2 foot by 2 foot, and not all of it's in focus, then there's not really that much point in taking that photo unless all of it is there for you to see. And finally, shutter speed's pretty easy. It refers to how fast a camera shutter clicks and can be a problem if you're photographing just handheld, but if you have a tripod, you can manipulate shutter speed without worrying about that blur, which is why we recommend aperture priority mode. So you can set your depth of field and your ISO, and you don't have to worry about your shutter speed at all. And it's a really good way for most beginners to photograph their work with a DSLR. Now, let's go into editing photos. And don't discount the power of editing once you're done taking your photographs. It's really good to have Adobe Photoshop and Lightroom, as the school does have tons of resources and technicians and teachers who have great classes and advice on that, but there's also a lot of free online editors such as Photopea and Pixlr. I personally like Pixlr. You just need Wi-Fi to access these. But even your phone camera editor will work if you're not having access to Wi-Fi or something else happens. The important thing to keep in mind with editing is to make sure the photo of the piece looks like the artwork itself. Keep the piece nearby if you can while you're editing so you can compare colors and contrast levels. This is something that I run into as a photographer and a craft artist, is the photographer side of me will go, well, I just need to adjust this and this, and then the photo itself will look better. But sometimes it's not about the photo, it's about the piece. So if my end product of the photo of the piece looks like a completely different piece, then I really didn't do my job right. So it's good to have your cup, in this case, on hand while you're editing, to make sure that you're staying on track and you're not going too crazy. So this is kind of the basic checklist for what you need to do for editing. First of all, make sure you get dust spots or dirt. Do some spot cleaning on there and just make it nice. Then you want to correct the color temperature of the piece so it doesn't look too blue or yellow or green. This can be affected by the kind of light that you're using, especially with desk lamps. So just making sure that, blue is blue and green is green and red is red, that kind of stuff. Also, make sure that your piece is not too dark or too bright. You want to have a good exposure there. 2D pieces should have nice straight edges and cropped properly, and 3D pieces should generally remain in the center of the photo and should fill the frame. The best common settings to use, regardless of what program you use for editing, are contrast or levels, white balance, and hue or saturation. And remember, keep the editing clean, simple, and true to your artwork. So this is just a quick video on how I edited these sample shots with my phone. Phone editing software is not the best, but it can be very credible in a pinch. So I'm just going to play this. This is just 1 minute long and shows you kind of what I used. First of all, I focused on cropping. You really want to make the edges seem crisp. For me, with this watercolor painting, I didn't really care about, the edges of the frame. I just did that because, with watercolor, you're supposed to tape off stuff. So I really care about what's actually being painted on. So there's my clean crop. I typically don't like using filters because they don't give enough control over it. So I try, with the exposure, you can see that I'm fiddling around with the settings quite a bit, trying to experiment. At the same time, while I'm doing this, I have the piece beside me and I'm looking at it to make sure the colors are being true. Contrast, adding a bit of that. And here's hue, which I talked about making the greens look greener or the greens look yellower. And there we go. It's done. And that's our finished product. So this is kind of before and after, and I apologize because PowerPoint kind of pixelated all of these images for me. But you can see that I did change like the intensity of the colors and the color balance. And this is phone editing for 3D pieces. So again, it's really important to keep your work in the center typically, although that's not a hard and fast rule. For a set of free images, 2 angles and a detail, try to keep the piece in the same size in the frame across all 3 images unless you're doing a detail shot. It's just an extra step that makes it look really nicer. Because if, one shot is like a tiny little cup and the next one's super huge, it doesn't really make it seem like it's the same piece. With this one, I definitely want to keep the cup right beside me because I want to focus on really getting those colors and that contrast to the right place. So I'm affecting a bit of the saturation. And I knew that the blue was off a little bit, so I wanted to get it to the right place. And I went back, just made sure that I liked everything that I saw. And yeah, there we go. So this is before and after, and while the background itself could use a bit of work, the piece, after editing, ended up being a lot more true to the actual color of the cup, which is kind of like this nice pale teal color. So we're also going to really quickly touch on preparing your files for submission to any application. This is something that, especially within the essay, we see a lot of people struggle with, is making sure that files are named properly and are the right size for a submission. It's really important when you're applying for something to review the file type and size requirements carefully, since having too big or too small files can really harm your application. There's many applications outside of school, actually, where they just won't look at your application if you mess up on that part. So make sure when you are submitting photo files that you pay attention. Yes, Rocio?
Hi, so we have a couple questions that they're related. And the question says, for people who are doing 2D, and for example, they have a digital print as in design or whatever, and they're going to be selling prints of that. Do you want them to document their work mounted on the wall or whatever? Do you want them to show the edges? That was the second question. Someone said, you have a silk screen and intaglio. Do you need to show the edges of the paper? How they should present those images?
Right, yeah. No, those are 2 really good questions. So for the first one, regarding if you have a digital print and you want to present it as a product for sale, ideally, as a customer, if I were buying a print, I would love to see it actually printed and then show the scale of how does it fit in your hand. Because when you look at a print that, let's say it's 8 by 10 inches, sometimes your brain makes the connection between how big 8 by 10 actually is, and sometimes it doesn't. So it is a bonus to be able to have the print actually printed and then kind of put to show the edges of the frame when doing that. But especially for show and sale, we understand that not everybody has that ready. So we're happy to just submit the files. And we'll talk a little bit later in the semester about using mockups for digital prints to give a sense of scale, which I can also touch on later in this workshop if we have some time. As for the second question regarding like traditional print practices, so this is kind of, It depends. It really depends. I had a lot of print majors come to me with that exact same question, and kind of what we decided as a bit of a group last June in Show and Sale was the edges are important if it is if it's something that you look for as an artist in terms of quality. For example, if you are doing an intaglio, generally you do want to pay attention to how your corners are either ripped or cut so it's nice and smooth, especially with traditional printmaking. A great way to separate that from digital prints is actually to include the edge of the frame. Just to show that it's handmade from start to finish, and it's not just a print printed by a printer. So that would be something I think that would really like kind of drive it home. But on the other hand, if you're really in a pinch and you made like an intaglio print, but the edges are just screwed up, you might choose not to put that in just because the edges suck. The problem with edges that I see a lot is, especially with traditional printmaking, sometimes your process results in paper that is super wavy on the edge. So that's where pinning can really, really come in handy if you want to showcase, you know, that nice crisp edge that you ripped really carefully or you cut. Just really pinning it down or kind of adhering it temporarily so that you don't see any waves. I'm assuming everybody knows how to check the size of image files on their computer, but if anyone doesn't, let me know and I can do a really quick demo on that. But generally, if you right-click on an image file on your computer and click More Info or Properties, then you'll be able to see how big the file actually is. So for example, I'm using my support materials section from Show and Sale, and we're asking for a file size under 2 megabytes. You can see here it's perfect. So just keeping an eye on that when you do actually apply for things with your photographs is really, really good to keep in mind going forward in and out of AUArts. Here's some other kind of good habits for files. When you're applying for something, it's generally best practice to make your files as big as they can go without crossing over that line. So for me, if I wanted to submit my images to Show and Sale and the maximum is 2 megabytes, I would want to kind of push my images as big as they can, but not go over 2 megabytes. For resizing photos, Lightroom and Photoshop, thank you. For resizing photos, Lightroom and Photoshop are really great, but there's also a free photo resizer called Adobe Spark, which can be done online. So make sure you check that out if you're in a pinch. Also, make sure you name your files properly so that both you and whoever is judging your application can find them easily if you ever get mixed up. This is a recommended file naming structure for personal use. I like this personally because it includes most of the information, and you can find it very easily on your computer instead of just searching up _DSC, whatever number it is. So I like to use image number, add detail if applicable, and then the artwork title, then my name, and then the year created, so that you can easily search this up on your own computer, and you can modify this to anything that an application might need. They're really good habits to get into. Trust me, when you're, years from now, when your computer is full of images, I have thousands literally on both my desktop and my laptop. It's a nightmare to go through them without proper file naming. So starting right now will just make your life a little bit easier down the road. And when you apply for things, having a good naming system is also going to make you look more professional for scholarships or residencies. And finally, we're just going to go into Photo Doc Days, which is a brand new service that the SA will be providing from November 12th to 14th, where we'll help you take your photo documentation to the next level. So the big thing about Subsidized Photo Doc is we want to have affordable photo documentation for all. We'll be offering Subsidized Photo Doc services during November 12th to 14th for all AUArts students, because we know that great photo doc is really important for creative careers. As mentioned before, photos of your artwork can make or break applications to galleries, residencies, graduate programs, scholarships, and a lot more. It's also really important for e-commerce and social media. But we also know that good photo doc does take time, skill, equipment, and money. And it's an important investment, but sometimes it can be out of reach financially for many students, especially for those who do not have campus access to our communal photo doc space. So what our service is going to do is to supplement our current free use Photo Doc studio and provide really high quality professional photography across AUArts. So how does it work? So we're going to be working with current photography students and alumni to photograph work in an assembly fashion, which will allow us to document art in a really consistent, affordable way. We'll be shooting artwork on a pure 255 white background, which is suitable for a variety of uses, including on a portfolio site, for applications, and e-commerce. By arranging Photo Doc within a period of 3 days, we can drastically reduce the cost of photo documentation while also paying our photographers industry standard rates. To be eligible for Photo Doc Days, you've got to attend the Show and Sale Copyright for Visual Artists workshop later running in October to learn how copyright and licensing works within Canada and how to properly credit a photographer or a collaborator in an image citation. Interested students must also sign a photography contract with one of our photographers to receive their photos. As a perk, show and sale artists who are juried in will have early sign-up access to Photo Doc Days and can also delay their payment until they get paid by show and sale, since we are going to use those photos for our e-commerce site. So that means for show and sale artists, instead of paying upfront for the service, they'll be able to have their Photo Doc Days purchase deducted from their final check in December, which is a huge perk. So we're going to really quickly kind of go through, what does the Photo Doc that we're going to do look like? So here's a really bad Photo Doc example. The background is not exactly not distracting. I mean, I focus more on this than the cup. The shadows are, a bit distracting as well. The piece is centered, but not the right exposure and stuff. So this is what we don't want to see in show and sale and for other stuff as well. So in contrast, look at how great the cup looks here with a really nice, clean, professional photography. You can see the true color of the blue. You can see all that nice texture, and the background basically fades away on a pure white background, which, again, the goal is make the artwork the star of the show. So it's completely non-distracting, and this is something that's very flattering for a lot of different applications. So another kind of contrast and compare. So this was our example from the presentation on photo documentation with your phone. It's actually fairly credible. You can see that, we managed to get the colors right, but the background has a little bit of funkiness to it. This is with school resources. So this is a piece that I did in third year that I documented using the school's resources with a basic DSLR camera. As you can see, the light on these pieces is pretty decent, but again, you're having a gradated background, which can work for a couple different pieces, but again, might not be what you want for your particular piece. And I don't have as much control over the lighting on the bottom of these hands, so the hands are almost kind of at the same scale of the pieces, which may or may not be what you want. Still very credible. And then this is with Photo Doc Days, really highlighting again, like just making sure that the piece remains the star of the show, and that this pure white background can just flow seamlessly into anything that you come up against. So here are the services that we can offer in Photo Doc Days in November. So we can do 2D artwork, which includes prints, paintings, and other flat work under 4 foot by 4 foot. So you pay $2 for 1 to 2 images, which includes a full shot and a detail shot. We can do 3D artwork, which can include ceramics, glass, jewelry, and other 3D pieces under 4 foot by 4 foot for $3 for 2 to 5 images. Wearables, which can include scarves, bags, some jewelry. It can include a professional model if we get enough requests for it. So that would be $4 for 2 to 5 images. And finally, oversized work. So any piece over 4 foot by 4 foot is $4 for 2 to 5 images. And we are also offering limited time is artist portraits, $4 for 1 to 3 images. So you can get your profile photo for LinkedIn or for AUArts or for any applications that you're doing for $4. So this is a sample set of 3D artwork documentation. So the 2 to 5 images is kind of by photographer discretion. However many shots it needs to kind of show the whole piece in its entirety is what we'll do. So here we have a nice side shot of the cup, a top shot showing where the glaze changes, and then a shot showing scale to show you how big the cup is. This is a set for 2D artwork, so 1 to 2 images with or without a frame, including a detail shot, a full shot, nicely cropped, and a detail, which you can turn into prints, cards, and more. Keep in mind that this mockup is not included within the documentation, but the files that you can get from our professional photo doc days are really high quality JPEGs, which you can turn into, prints, cards, all these different lucrative products. So keep that in mind, that even though you can do 2D artwork documentation by yourself, getting them to be documented at photo doc days means that you'll have big enough files to create all kinds of great stuff here. And this is just a sample artist portrait documentation. So 1 to 3 images on pure white. We're including both torso and headshot options. Pose is kind of going to be up to you and the photographer. But again, it just gives a really nice, solid portrait for you to use for any personal, professional, or editorial purposes. So I also had to put in here a note about conflict of interest. So Photo Doc Days is intended to be a supplementary student service to AUArts' current resources. Show and sale artists and other students are not forced to pay for the service if they don't want or need it. During November 12th to 14th, Room 451, which is the communal photo doc studio, will remain open for all to book if you want to photo doc your own work in your own way. There are many great learning resources both Brent and the SA have to help you be successful documenting yourself, so feel free to ask the technician or the student technician for assistance if needed, and refer to our excellent video guides. Additionally, we will be renting our own equipment from the camera store, so school equipment can be reserved for photography majors. The images we'll be delivering will be high-quality JPEGs that you can use for any personal or professional purposes. Just as a note, while it's possible to obtain these high-end photographs on your own, at this time you will need to go above and beyond the current AUArts communal equipment and resources to do so to create the photographs that we have in our samples. Our main goal is to use our in-house talent to create photographs that can only be done with extensive equipment and know-how in an accessible way to students without the disruption of communal resources. So how do you sign up? We'll be releasing more information on how and when you can begin booking some artwork for Photo Doc Days later in early October. The main point of contact for that will be me, Leah, and I'll be releasing more information as soon as I get it. And as a photographer and a craft artist, I know that photographs are important enough in my career to invest in. And while paying for photo documentation is not always practical or realistic, bringing in a professional to do high-end photographs for you can be a real game changer. The rates that we have been able to negotiate for Photo Doc Days are incredibly competitive for the quality of image you will receive. Keep in mind that professional photo documentation for artwork can cost $200 or more for a single piece, depending on difficulty and size. And also, I just want to put it out there, there is no shame in collaborating with a photographer or anyone else. Many professional artists have favorite photographers that they bring in to doc their work when they don't have the time, the skill, or the equipment. By using our service, you'll be connecting with great photographers within our AUArts community and support our majors, which is really awesome. And we're hoping to connect people together so that if you like what you see here, then you have a person to go to after you leave school. So we really, really recommend that you take advantage of this opportunity while you're still a student. All right, and that is the end of my presentation. I'm going to open up the floor to any questions, and you can also email me at showandsale.sa@auarts.ca if you'd like any assistance or advice on anything photo doc related.
Bravo! Woohoo! Thank you, Leah. It's a lot of information, right? And I find it very interesting though, because we're trying to provide as much information as we can to the students, but the reality is that any practicing artist can tell you that take years to get to a point where you're like exactly how you're presenting your work. This is just an introduction, and don't feel overwhelmed. Don't feel like, oh my gosh, I don't have this, I don't have that. Just focus on a couple things that you want to achieve and start from there, right? Like, just say, okay, if I do these two things right, I'm okay with that. And then you start building from that. Don't let the perfectionism to stop you from participating.
Totally, for sure. And I know our jury for show and sell, like we understand that photo documentation is something that it takes a long time to learn. And again, students may not have access to the photo doc studio because it's not even open till October. So we're not expecting perfection from any of our applications. And that's why we're so happy to offer photo doc days, because there are times in your life that, you know, even if you do have the materials and the experience, you might have better things to do than sit and photo doc for hours on end. And it's really important to make those connections with photographers who do know what they're doing so that you can help each other out in those situations.
Exactly. Lots of trades in, make friends with the photo students. Honestly, always helps. You can trade art. I actually done documentation when I was a student. I did documentation for art. Sometimes people pay me with mugs or pay me with sculptures, like whatever, like use that. There's a few questions there, Ali. I don't know if you've seen them.
I don't know where we left off with questions, so maybe you can help me out with that.
Mostly is one that they're asking about. They sign up for the copyright course, when that's gonna go out.
Okay, so the copyright course, which will be taught by a CARFAC representative, we haven't decided on a date yet, but it will be happening sometime in October, and that one is free for everyone to attend. So as soon as we figure out a date for that, I will be letting people know by email and on the Teams channel, and you'll see it as a calendar invitation on your Outlook.
Gonna add to that one. I don't know if it's gonna be recorded, but highly recommend that you show up. I know like so many things are happening in the school. Try to put them in your calendar. A good strategy is that you can always accept an RSVP to every event that you're invited in the hub. And then that way it gives you the notification that the event has started, and you might join just listening or deciding not to join. But it's I find it that there's a lot of stuff happening and people get like confused. My strategy is just accept everything, and then the day off you decide if you want to join in or not. There's a lot of valuable information, so stay tuned, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean, don't worry if you can't make these workshops live. We're recording all of them. So if you missed a live session, you can always watch it on MS Stream. Or I know that, especially with my workshops, I give a lot of information and it does take some time to process. So you're free to rewatch these recordings as many times as you want on MS Stream if you ever miss anything. I guess moving on to the next question, will we be penalized for image quality for the October 1st deadline? So initially in our judging criteria, we were putting in photo documentation, like providing points in that category, but that was with the assumption that the communal photo doc studios would be open during September. However, because I recently learned that they're under renovation and they won't be ready until after the show and sale application, I'll be talking with the jury about kind of reframing that, because if students don't have access to that space and communal resources, I can't expect them to give me the best quality images, right? So we'll definitely be talking about that and most likely removing that section from the show and sale guidelines for this semester in light of what's going on. And photo doc days, those are kind of the ideal images that we would love for show and sale. But if you don't get there on your initial application, that is completely fine. That's why we're having photo doc days, is that we're gonna really like push the documentation and take your piece from being like a 6 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10 with the help of our photographers. For Rachel, for digital work, do we need to print out a physical copy to properly document it? No, you do not. Ideally, we would like to see, an actual print or a card or a sticker, but if you don't have that on hand, that's okay. However, we do ask that if you do want to sell prints of something, you let us know in your artist statement. I would like to sell smaller prints or larger prints, just so that we can get a sense of what you would like to do, and we can workshop it from there. Yes, Rocio?
I was just going to add a comment as a client, because I bought some work from the Emily Card market that they had earlier, and also from the AUArts. And there was one case where I bought a T-shirt. This student, made the design, got an idea where it was going to get the T-shirts, put it out there. I think, sold all these T-shirts, and then realized like, oh, oops, I can't produce them. And so they make the sale, and then a month later they have to say like, do you want your money back, because I'm not going to be able to produce it. As a client, that it is really frustrating, because it's like, hello, we just went through I was thinking, compassionately for the student. I was like, okay, too bad though, because they made the sale and now they have to return the money. In my case, I was too lazy to even ask for a refund. So I was like, whatever. I just forgot about it. No kidding. 3 weeks ago, I got a package and I'm like, what the heck is this? And it's a T-shirt. I'm sorry. It took me 7 months to do these T-shirts. Here is your I had forgotten about it. I had compassion for the students. I was not going to be like, on their neck. But I was thinking like, don't do that. Like,
please don't do that. Only put things in the sale that you actually have ready to sell. Definitely. And I know right now that it's 2:08, so it is past our time. But especially since I'm getting questions about digital artwork, I told you before that there was a workaround to actually document digital artwork as a physical print or card or etc. without actually having to print it out. So if you are interested, if there's people interested in that, I will actually just do a quick 5-minute demo of how to do that using a fabulous resource called Mockups. So if anyone would like to stay for that, they are absolutely welcome to. And if not, you are free to go. And I'm going to take some last questions before we do that demonstration. Okay, so Rachel McKinnon, when is the deadline for our inventory sheets? So once you are juried into show and sale, it'll be about October 7th to 9th. And once you are notified of your accepted date, we'll send you a folder full of all the documents you need, including your inventory sheets. We have an early bird deadline and a final deadline. The benefit of going for the early bird deadline is you can have your work pre-bought for our social media giveaways and get extra feedback, but it's not mandatory. And our final deadline is kind of that final, like if you don't get it in, we can't put it in. So our early bird deadline will be October 31st, which is Halloween, so that's pretty easy to remember. So if you have your inventory, even one piece ready on your inventory by then we can totally consider a pre-sale for your work. But if you need more time to work on things, and that's okay, you can wait until November 16th to have everything ready. So between the time you are accepted, you have about, I think, 2 free weeks till the early bird deadline, and then an additional 2 weeks until the final deadline. All right, any other questions before I do a really quick spiel on just mockups and how to use them?
I think you can go ahead and do the demo. Just because I'm just like, going into every group right now and interjecting my little commercial. Also check the HER residency call for submissions. It's on October 1st. It's an amazing program. You will not regret it. It's super awesome. I am super proud to be managing the HER residency. And we have a lot of fun, and you get a lot of support. You get to hang out with a lot of students from different departments, and we'll take care of you. That was
awesome. Thank you, Rocio. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to kind of present just really quickly about mockups. So you're a digital artist, a photographer, or someone who uses digital processes in order to create your art. You have an image file. But you want to document it in a way that shows scale, that actually shows it as a physical product, but you don't have the money or resources to actually print it out. The solution is called mockups. Mockups are these photographs created by other photographers and designers, and they're actually designed as blank templates that you can insert your own image file in. I'll share my screen and I'll show you an example of a mock-up that a student in show and sale last June used. So this is the actual image file of a digital print, Olivia with wild flowers. Very nice, But as a consumer, I don't really know, just looking at this file, how big it is without reading the size down here. And even then, 14 inches by 11 inches. I'm not that good at, mentally figuring out how big that is. So, I would prefer an image like this. In this case, they used a mock-up, which all this surrounding area is actually pre-photographed, and all they needed to do was insert their own image file here in this mock-up frame. So having this image along with the original file as a consumer is really, really nice, because then I can say, oh, that's what a 14-inch by 11-inch is going to look and feel like, because it's got different props around here that show, okay, this is a big plant, this is a small plant, and this is a shelf. Now I know approximately how big it is visually, and it helps out quite a bit. So next, I'm going to really quickly go into Teams and show you where you can find some resources on mockups. There's a lot of them that you can find for free with Adobe and with other stuff. So if you go into Teams and go into the Students Association Community Hub, I actually have a pre-made mini workshop on this in the Show and Sale Virtual Market section. If you go over here, you'll find all the news about Show and Sale and our workshops, so you should follow us anyways. But if you zoom all the way up here, we're going to show you how to do mockups. So you can go here and look at how mockups work, how to set up a digital file for a mockup, and how to use Adobe Photoshop to create a mockup. As you can see here, I used the same mockup as that student did, just as a demonstration. Oftentimes with mockups, you may need to actually edit your original file in order to make it look good as such. And then you can also use a mockup generator if you do not have access to Photoshop. Sometimes they'll add watermarks, and you might not get kind of the nicest mockups from there, but it is another choice if you don't have Adobe Photoshop or Lightroom at your disposal. And usually these are about $5 to $10 for mockups. And if you search up the term mockup, M-O-C-K-U-P, all one word, on Google, you can usually find a bunch of different resources and files that you can use. As you can see, there's like cards, you can try stickers or frames. I actually recommend using mockups even if you're like a traditional artist. If you remember in my presentation, I had that watercolor print of like the hoodoos, right? And then I had a mockup of it in a card. If you have a product idea, go to an online mockup generator and just stick your photograph or your file in and try it out. Does my work look good as a sticker? Does it look good as a print or a card or even like on a bag or a t-shirt? It will allow you an opportunity to visually assess, do I want to turn my artwork into this type of product before investing in the product? So it's a really good visual tool, and it also helps both customers and juries and clients see how your artwork can translate from just an ambiguous image file into something they can actually buy. Whew. Okay, all right. There we go. So I got one thing from Terry. Hey, Leia, I noticed this summer that some of the mockups were for poster size images rather than letter size, which some of the prints were. It was deceiving, just something to note. Yes, I did notice that as well. I'll be kind of doing another kind of spiel on that, on making sure if you are using mockups, make sure you're using the right size mockup for the right size image. That's why personally taking a photograph of a printed piece is much better, because you're 100% sure that if you print it at 8x8, it will look 8x8 in the photograph. But in a pinch, mockups will work. You just need to be very careful about making sure you use the right one so that you're not deceiving your audience. Whew. Any other questions? Or does everybody know where to find that really quick mockup tutorial? Or do I need to go through it again? All right, I think we're good. Do we have any last questions about photo documentation resources at school, at home, or through Photo Doc days? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no. for show and sale people who are interested in applying, congratulations! You just knocked one of these workshops off your mandatory list, so yay! I'll be sending out like an artist checklist for our professional development program later next week so that you can download the checklist and start checking things off. Now that this is going to be a pre-recorded session as well. So congrats. And yeah, if you need any assistance with photo documentation, please let me know. Brent Smith at the IO Lab is also an excellent resource. We're both really happy to help. And I know Rocio as a photography alumni is great too. Julia Borden, who's a current student, is also here in the audience as well. So anyways, I would just recommend, it is application season. Make sure you take a look at your photo doc, see what you can do at home, and if you need help with anything, especially for essay programs, which are all due on October 1st, including MNG, show and sale, and her residency, then please let me know, let Rocio know, let any of the coordinators know, and we'd be happy to help you. All right, final question here. How many pieces are we allowed to sell in show and sale if we get in? So that, there's an easy but not easy answer for that. So previously in show and sale, if you had, let's see, if you had 2 of this style of mug, then these would count as 2 separate items. But because we are in an online sale, and there's kind of different rules for how inventory works, then if you had 2 of these, but they're the same kind of style and technique and size, then you can actually list them as a single item. So what we have for anyone who gets into show and sale is you have 30 unique items / listings that you can put in the sale. And if you have a bunch of these, like maybe say you have 10 of these, they will still count as only 1 item on your inventory sheet. So this system is actually really conducive to people who make multiples, like craft artists, or people who make like multiple editions of prints. So I would recommend taking advantage of that. We are kind of doing a case-by-case basis, especially for student clubs and fundraisers. If they do need a bit more space, just come talk to me. But yeah, we'll be talking more about inventory later in October through our inventory workshops as well. And yes, apply for show and sale. It does pay off, like literally pays off. And thank you, Julia, for offering to answer any photo doc questions. As I said before, we're using current photo doc students because they are our photo doc program. Our photo department is just amazing. There's so many talented people there that I love working with, and we're like super happy to help with anything. So just ask us, and you know, we're gearheads, so we'll tell you pretty much anything you want to know. All right, this is the final call for questions before we end our super overlong workshop on photo documentation.
I think we need to give a prize to Lou because it has shown up to every single workshop we ever had.
I know.
Week. I know.
And Lou's always like so early too. And as a final note, all this presentation, this PowerPoint, including all the links and this recording, should be up by about Monday on MS Stream and on the Community Hub channels. So if you guys forgot anything or need to refer back, you will be able to find it there around Monday, Tuesday. Just give us a little bit of time to upload everything. And again, if you have questions or concerns, please let me know at showandsale.sa@auarts.ca.
Yay!
I am
And don't forget about next week we have portfolios that